Everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll explore Terraform outputs and how they can be used to improve your infrastructure management. We'll begin by understanding what outputs are and why they're important. We'll explore how you can define your outputs with the output block. Next, we will learn how you can access those declared outputs using Terraform output command or from a state file. We'll then look at output arguments like description, sensitive, precondition, and depends on, and we'll learn and I'll also demonstrate how they play their role when we declare outputs. Finally, we're going to wrap up by creating different output files, which would kind of demo how to keep your code organized and put all of your outputs in a single file. By the end of this video, you'll know how to define outputs, access them, and use them effectively, which would make your Terraform projects more organized and powerful. So without any delay, let's get started. Outputs are used to extract and share important data from your Terraform configurations. They help in extracting information like IP addresses, DNS names, or any other resource details. Think of them like return values in programming. They provide a way to capture and share relevant details about the resources Terraform is managing. Outputs are particularly useful for referencing information from other modules or passing data between two different configurations. For example, if you deploy an EC2 instance, you would output its public IP address so that you could use that IP address for SSH or for any other sort of automation you may have in place that would use the IP address. To declare an output, use the output block in your Terraform configuration file. This block specifies the name for the output, the value you want to extract, and optional arguments like description. Depending on the attributes, some of them are only available after Terraform apply. In this example, we have IP address output, which is essentially going to provide an public IP of web-instance EC2 instance that we would have declared above in our configuration. Now we're going to demo how we declare outputs in our configuration. For this, I have a relatively simple configuration where I'm creating only single EC2 instance. I do have a provider.tf file, which is essentially describing the configuration for my AWS provider. We're going to create two outputs. One of them should be known to Terraform before Terraform apply happens, and the second one would be only known once the Terraform creates the resource. Okay, so now I've declared two outputs. The first one is public IP. I want to retrieve the public IP of my EC2 instance and have it displayed on my terminal. So for that, I've named that output public IP, and for the value, I'm using resource type dot the resource name, and the attribute that I'm accessing here is public IP. And the second output is instance type, where similarly I'm using instance type for dot resource type, resource name, and the attribute that I'm accessing for that particular output's value. As you could imagine, I've already described instance type in my configuration above, so Terraform already knows this. So this value should get output when I run Terraform plan or before Terraform apply creates the resources. So let's save this configuration now and run Terraform apply. So outputs are displayed right below the summary where Terraform tells you how many resources it's going to create, change, or destroy. The values that are known would be just displayed with the data type that they support. In our case, instance type is string type, and that's how the value is displayed. The public IP is not known to Terraform as the EC2 instance is not created yet, and it would be only known after the Terraform apply completes. So let's confirm this so that Terraform creates the resource for us. So we're going to wait for a bit until it's finished creating our EC2 instance. All right, so Terraform apply is completed and has created our EC2 instance, and output values are displayed at the bottom, right below the summary, where Terraform's telling you how many resources it has created, changed, or destroyed. Now we know both values, public IP and the instance type. Now, if I know the values, what benefit they have for me having it displayed here? You could use these values for multiple purposes. I could use this public IP to connect to my SSH right from here. I don't have to go anywhere else to, just like to my console, to retrieve the public IP of my EC2 instance, or to review the state file to get the public IP. So now I know the IP, I could use it to connect to it using SSH. There you go. Now I'm connected to the resource that I created, and I've used the output value to connect to my resource quickly. I could use this IP address for other reasons, if I have database and that is expecting this value, or any sort of automation I could have in place where I would be using this public IP address. It's a convenient place for me to grab the public IP address. Other reason is that, a lot of people may not have access to the state file, or they may not have access to the console either. So to reviewing the public IP from those two places could be limited to certain people. So having it displayed in the output is very beneficial. There are several ways to access output values in Terraform. The first one is you just run Terraform output, and it would give you the list of the outputs that are being managed by Terraform. If you want to access a particular outputs value, you run Terraform output and the name of the output to view the output value. You could also access outputs directly from the Terraform state file, as long as you have access to the state file. Now let's see in action how we can access our outputs in terminal once the configuration is created. So to do that, you go to your terminal and run Terraform output. This command outputs the list of the outputs that are being managed by Terraform. If you want to access a particular outputs value, you run Terraform output and the name of the output, and it would give me the value for that particular output that I've asked for. Other way to access output values is from the state file. So you go to your state file, and under output blocks, you would see the list of outputs that are being managed by Terraform. And this is where you could see their values and the type for that value as well. Here we have instance type. The value is for a T2 micro and it's a string type. Similarly, for public IP, you could read its value here and the data type for that value. Outputs have several arguments that you can use to kind of customize their behavior. First, you have description. Description provides details about the output's purpose and what it is being used for. Then you have sensitive argument. Sensitive argument would hide output's value in logs or in the console for security reasons. To declare a sensitive output, you just enter in sensitive argument within the output block and set it to true. Outputs of sensitive output would be hidden. In this example, we have hidden public IP output so that it is not gonna get output to the terminal after the resource is created. Please note that sensitive value would be stored in the state file and can be viewed there. It's just not gonna display when the Terraform apply completes or when I run Terraform output to view all the outputs. However, if I run Terraform output with specifying the name, the value is gonna get output to my terminal. Now let's see how this sensitive argument works in our configuration. We're going to continue with the similar configuration that we've been using, which is again creating EC2 instance, and we have 2 outputs. Maybe, I'll create a new one just for ARN. I've just created an additional output. I mean, why not? It would just kind of give you a bit of a longer list of outputs for us to manage. So easier for the demo as well. So to declare a sensitive output, you just again use the keyword sensitive and set the value to true. Once you set the output as sensitive, you'd have to run Terraform apply again. This Terraform apply just added output to our configuration and it refreshed our state as well. So I have to confirm this by entering yes. And now, as you could see, the public IP is hidden from the output. It's not being displayed. So if I run Terraform output, what we learned in our previous demo to list our outputs, in this, my output value is hidden again. However, if I run Terraform output and with the name given for the output, the value would get displayed. So the sensitive only hides our value from the Terraform output or when the Terraform apply finishes. If I'm doing any sort of a debugging or trying to review any logs, then the value would be hidden, but the value is still visible if you try to run Terraform output with the name of the output. And the value again in the state file also is visible all the time. So the value in the output is never hidden. So as you come in here, you could easily read the value. We also talked about description, so you could add additional argument description and which would essentially describe what this output is for. I would say, so what the description is doing for me, that it making my code more readable. So if third person comes in and read my code, they would know what this output is for, and makes your code more readable and easier to manage. Next, we have precondition. Precondition arguments ensures that the certain conditions are met before we generate the output. In this example, we wanted to display VPC ID only if there are 2 or more subnets in that VPC. So to declare a precondition argument, you just use the precondition keyword, and within the curly braces, you put in the condition and the error message if the condition doesn't meet. And then you have depends on argument. Depends on kind of ensures that the particular resources are created before we generate the output. In this example, we are making sure that the elastic IP is associated with EC2 instance before we output its value. In reality, Terraform takes care of the dependencies on its own, and we wouldn't need to define depends on for the most part. You should use depends on only if you have to. And this time we're gonna create our resource, but this time I'm gonna not define the key name, and we're gonna set a condition for our public IP output. What this condition is essentially testing here, that making sure that I do have a key name attached. If it's not going to display the IP address of the server. I will remove the sensitive argument as well. It's not needed for this demo. So let's see that in action. Okay, so the resource did get created successfully. I'm just not getting the output values. All other output values are also accessible. You could see the values by running Terraform output, but my public IP output has no value to it because my resource that I've created didn't meet the condition for it to be the value to be displayed. So yeah, that's how precondition comes in handy. You define a condition, what you want to have before you display the output. And now for depends on, I'm adding an additional resource, elastic IP, and I've removed the precondition for public IP output, and I'm gonna add depends on argument this time, which is gonna rely on our elastic IP resource before it displays this public IP. Like I was saying before, this is kind of unnecessary here for this simple configuration. If I had a bit of a complex configuration where I had multiple modules, I probably would have defined depends on and where it could have been serving my purpose. But here it's not really kind of making any difference. Terraform already knows that it's supposed to have Elastic IP created before it creates the EC2 instance. So I'm just doing it to kind of demo how you do it anyway. So you just use the depends on keyword and you put the resource names within this square brackets. So hit save and run Terraform apply. Now I've created additional Elastic IP, and now it's displaying its value because the resource was successfully created. There's no error when it comes to displaying its public IP's value. Now at last we have output files. Separating outputs into their own files helps you keep your Terraform code more organized and kind of easier to navigate. It kind of also makes your code more readable. Having all outputs in one place makes it easier to quickly see what information your Terraform configuration is exposing. When outputs are in dedicated files, it's easier to add, modify, or even remove them without kind of affecting other parts of your configuration. And this is how you kind of essentially create a different file, outputs.tf, and where you kind of define all of your outputs. Terraform's going to read the output just fine from a different file as long as they are in the same directory as the configuration directory. It kind of makes your code easy to read and easy to manage as well. Just like provider, which we separated from our configuration file, separating outputs makes your code look more clean. With that, that's it with this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please consider subscribing and liking to this video.